0746 hours, August 13th, 2025, 12 nautical miles west of Scarborough Shoal. The AN/SPY-1DV radar display aboard the USS Higgins is showing a contact that has been building speed for the last 4 minutes. The PLA Navy Type 052D guided missile destroyer Gillen, hull number 164, is now pushing 28 knots on a bearing that has only one geometric conclusion. What is more immediately significant than the contact speed is what the electronic warfare console is registering. The Gillen's Type 346A active electronically scanned array radar is transmitting at a power level that goes well beyond standard surface search or track mode. It is flooding the entire frequency band with electromagnetic energy in a pattern that EW operators recognize immediately. Not a targeting solution, not a coherent search sweep, but a full power emission across multiple azimuths simultaneously. The signature of a system being operated by a crew that has been ordered to look aggressive rather than ordered to achieve a specific tactical effect. 2 days earlier, the Gillen had been involved in a collision, not with an American vessel, with a Chinese Coast Guard ship, her own side's platform, in an incident that resulted from the kind of rushed, high-speed close-quarters maneuvering that produces accidents when the crew executing it is under political pressure to demonstrate territorial assertion rather than operating within standard seamanship margins. The bruising on the Gillen's hull was physical evidence of a command environment in which the order to perform aggressive expulsion maneuvers against foreign vessels had overridden the judgment of officers who understood the operational risks. That environment had not changed in 2 days. It was about to produce a second incident whose consequences would be measured not in hull damage, but in intelligence. The USS Higgins was not patrolling Scarborough Shoal. She was enforcing a principle. China's prior notification requirement for innocent passage through what international law defines as international waters is not a recognized legal framework under UNCLOS. It is a unilateral declaration that approximately 15% of global commercial sea lanes, through which over $3 trillion in annual trade transits, require Chinese permission to access. The legal architecture that keeps those lanes open to all flag states does not contain a Chinese veto. The freedom of navigation operation the Higgins was executing was the physical repudiation of the pretension that one does. The USS Higgins understood something about this transit that the Gillen's Bridge Watch did not. The Gillen believed it was confronting a single Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, a formidable vessel, but one ship against one ship, where size, radar power, and the willingness to maneuver aggressively might produce a result Nanjing Command could characterize as a successful expulsion. The Gillen was not confronting one ship. It was confronting a network. An E-2D Advanced Hawkeye was orbiting at altitude approximately 300 miles out. Its AN/APS-145 radar, covering the entire operational area and pushing its picture into every U.S. platform in the theater via Link 16. A P-8 A Poseidon was holding a surveillance track at operational altitude. Its AN/APY-10 multimode radar and electronic support measures suite recording every emission the Gillen was producing. The Aegis Baseline 9 combat management system aboard the Higgins was integrating inputs from its own sensors, from the Hawkeye and from the P-8 into a single unified picture that gave the Higgins' tactical action officer a targeting solution on every contact in the operational area, regardless of whether the Higgins' own radar had direct line of sight. Cooperative engagement capability means a ship can fire based on another platform's sensor data as if it were its own. The Gillen had one ship's radar picture. The Higgins had the combined picture of an entire networked theater. Every emission the Gillen's Type 346A was producing, the frequency, the power level, the pulse repetition interval, the specific characteristics of the AESA's waveform under stress, was being logged by the Higgins' AN/SLQ-32V 6 Sidekick Electronic Warfare Suite and simultaneously transmitted to the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Intelligence Architecture. Weeks of previous surveillance operations in this theater had already built a baseline library of the Type 346A's normal operating parameters. What was being recorded now, a Type 346A being driven at full power under operational stress by a crew under political pressure, was the delta between baseline and stressed performance. That delta is intelligence. The Type 052D Gillen is not a vessel to underestimate on paper. displacing 7,500 tons, armed with a 64-cell universal vertical launch system, carrying YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles and HHQ-9 surface-to-air missiles, equipped with a 130mm main gun and the Type 346A radar system that Chinese naval media describes as the backbone of their Aegis equivalent. The Gilin is among the most capable destroyers in the PLA Navy order of battle. The psychological investment the PLA Southern Theater Command had placed in this class of vessel was substantial. It represented the technical credibility of China's naval modernization program. It was about to spend that credibility buying intelligence. At 0801, the Gilin completed its acceleration run and executed a hard starboard turn directly across the Higgins' bow. The geometry was deliberate. Cut across the American destroyer's track close enough to force a course alteration or risk collision, establishing the visual narrative of a Chinese warship successfully diverting an American vessel from its transit. The same maneuver profile that had produced the collision with the Chinese Coast Guard ship 2 days earlier was being repeated against a different target. Inside the Higgins' Combat Information Center, the atmosphere was the specific kind of calm that is the product of practiced routine rather than the absence of pressure. The tactical action officer, Lieutenant Commander Vance, was watching the vector lines converge on his display. His hand was positioned near the fire inhibit control, not because he expected to use it, but because doctrine places it there. His attention was on the EW console. The Higgins did not alter course, did not reduce speed, did not respond to the Gilin's maneuver with any maneuver of its own. What it did was execute a pre-programmed electronic warfare sequence. The AN/SLQ 32 Sidekick Suite, operating with a complete passive characterization of the Type 346A's specific emission parameters, built from the weeks of surveillance data that preceded this transit, delivered a precisely targeted, deceptive jamming pulse. Not broadband interference, the kind of brute force jamming that suppresses a radar by drowning it in noise across a wide frequency range, which a modern AESA can partially mitigate by frequency hopping. This was deceptive jamming at the specific frequencies and power levels the Type 346A was using at that moment, injecting synthesized false returns directly into the radar's picture. Not noise, but coherent, plausible target data. Hundreds of high-velocity contacts appearing simultaneously from multiple bearings. The fire control system receiving those returns could not distinguish them from real threats at the processing speed required to maintain situational awareness during a high-speed maneuvering engagement. For 5 seconds, the Gilin's tactical picture went from an aggressive intercept posture to a system reporting an engagement it had no context to interpret. 20 seconds after the pulse, the Type 346A's display had degraded from a functioning tactical picture to an unusable strobing interference pattern. Senior Lieutenant Chen, the Gilin's officer of the deck, had been watching the distance to the Higgins close through the morning haze from a position of assumed tactical superiority. In the space of 20 seconds, that picture inverted. Without a functioning radar picture, he could not confirm the American destroyer's speed, bearing, or distance. The ship he was cutting across the bow of was 8,400 tons of steel and was not moving. The emergency order was instinctive. Rudder hard port. Break away. The Gilin, already at high speed and already committed to a turn that had put her beam onto the Higgins' track, executed an uncontrolled swerve to port. The maneuver was not tactical. It was survival. At the speed the Gilin was traveling, the turn radius required to clear the Higgins' projected track produced a wide, uncontrolled arc that would have ended in collision if the Higgins had been where the Gilin's panicked geometry assumed it was. The Higgins was exactly where it had always been, on its legal course at its legal speed, maintaining innocent passage. The Gilin cleared the Higgins' wake and continued her break-off arc until she was outside the 12 nautical mile limit. The crew was reporting the engagement to Nanjing Command in whatever framing made the outcome sound intentional. The Higgins continued its transit. The freedom of navigation operation was documented as complete. The right of innocent passage through waters that China does not own was reaffirmed by a vessel that did not alter its course by a single degree. The intelligence outcome of the engagement was the part the Gilin's after-action report would never include. The Type 346A, under stressed full-power operation, then subjected to precision deceptive jamming and driven into an emergency high-speed evasion, had produced a complete operational performance profile in conditions that no controlled test could replicate. The specific frequencies at which the deceptive jamming achieved decisive effect, the power threshold at which the Type 346A's processing architecture broke down into unusable output, The recovery time between the jamming pulse and the moment Chen could have restored a functional picture had the situation allowed him to do so. All of it captured, packaged, encrypted, and transmitted via Link 16 to the theater intelligence architecture within seconds of collection. The cost of that intelligence package to the United States, a few $100s in electromagnetic energy, and the operational time of one destroyer on a transit it was already conducting. The cost to the PLA Navy, the stressed condition performance parameters of their flagship destroyer's primary sensor system, now resident in the guidance architecture of every future U.S. electronic warfare system that will operate against Type 05-2D vessels. Every AIM-120 fired from an F-35 that needs to defeat a Type 346A fire control solution. Every EA/18G Growler jamming package optimized for Chinese AESA frequencies. Every future AN/S LQ32 upgrade that incorporates Type 346A vulnerability data. All of them will carry the Gillen's contribution, logged at 0801 on August 13th in the South China Sea. The PLA Navy brought a formidable Type 052D to this engagement. The Higgins brought the network that made the Type 052D a data collection opportunity. The structural lesson that Scarborough Shoal produced is not about the relative capability of the two vessels. Both are capable ships. It is about what happens when one side is operating a platform as part of an integrated network and the other side is operating its platform as if it were the entire network. The Gillen's crew believed they were conducting a bilateral confrontation, one ship against one ship, where aggressive maneuvering and radar power translate into tactical dominance. The Higgins' crew understood they were one node in a system that extended to Hawkeyes at altitude, Poseidons on patrol, and Aegis combat management software processing the combined picture in real time. The Gillen's tactical behavior, the full-power radar emissions, the aggressive intercept geometry, the high-speed stressed evasion, was executed in the belief that it was visible only to the vessel it was directed against. Every element of it was being observed, characterized, and archived by an architecture that the Gillen had no ability to detect because that architecture was largely passive during the engagement. A passive sensor watching an active emitter is invisible to that emitter. The Gillen was broadcasting, the network was listening. The Type 346A's vulnerability profile now exists in a classified database. Future U.S. electronic warfare systems will be programmed against it. The Gillen's panicked emergency maneuver, the specific speed, turn radius, and reaction time under electronic stress, is now a behavioral model for what a Type 052D crew does when their situational awareness is removed. That behavioral model will inform future operational planning. The South China Sea returned to its operational baseline by mid-morning. The Higgins filed her mission completion report. The P-8 returned to base. The Hawkeye recovered to its carrier. In Nanjing, someone wrote an after-action report that described the outcome of the engagement in terms chosen carefully. The performance parameters of the Type 346A under jamming stress were not included in that report. They did not need to be. They were already where they were most useful. If this breakdown gave you a clear picture of how a non-kinetic naval engagement produces intelligence outcomes that outlast the engagement itself, subscribe and share it. More of these analyses keep coming as long as you are here for them.